Welcome to Vator Box. I'm Bambi Francisco, and with me, as always, is Ezra Roizen. He's our Vator Box regular and digital media investment banker. And once again, we have Chris Shipley. She is executive producer of Demo, as many of you know, and who better to be our guest host than Chris, because over the past 13 years, you've been looking at 2,000 companies, 2,000 tech startups, whittling them down to 60 to find the cream of the crop. So we have Chris here with us to help us evaluate some of the startups. And today we're going to take a look at Digger. So first, welcome.
Glad to be here.
Thank you for being here again. And Ezra, thank you as always. So let's take a look at Digger and Tim Musgrove's pitch.
Hi there, I'm Tim Musgrove. I'm the CEO and founder of Digger. And we're a group of former CNET executives and employees that spun out of there a few years ago to develop linguistic technologies, especially semantic tools for the web that can help other websites turn on semantic search on their site and automatically tag all their content according to the meaning of the text, making it easier for their users to find all the relevant content every time they visit that site. And then furthermore, we're going to launch a destination site in the latter part of this year that will really bring this to the public to be able to search the web in a power users kind of way, a way that you can really define the semantics or the meaning of your query and find all the variations and all the different phrases that are different ways of saying the same thing so that you don't have to sit there and think of 10 different ways to retype your query.
I think here's a case where he could have set up the problem with searches, perhaps, and maybe gave you a little bit more of a visual.
Yeah. I think there's a way to frame the problem. And clearly there's a lot of opportunity in the search category.
Sure.
There's lots of innovation. There's lots of new way of approaching the problem. I think there's also indexing problems. There's taxonomy problems. There's lots of things you can basically say, here are the challenges that we see. You could basically lay out, the whole landscape of issues and then say, this is the ones we pick off. But yep. I think he basically accomplishes it, but I think it definitely could be a tighter pitch.
Well, here's my challenge. Nobody buys technology, right? They buy a solution to something. They buy their problem being solved. Mm-hmm. I'm reminded in this pitch, back in the day when I drew the short straw and had to cover AI, nobody bought artificial intelligence. They bought things that you could do using that technology. And I think especially as they move this product into a public-facing website, they need to be talking about what they're delivering for customers,
right.
Not semantics. I don't want to define my semantics. I want to get to information.
That is such a great point. He doesn't have to say we're a semantic search. We are a better search. We are a different solution. But if you're going to be about drawing consumers in to use your product, then you should just talk about the solution. I totally agree with that.
Well, this industry's gotten really excited about semantic technology, right? It's the current buzz. And that's great inside baseball, but it's not so great in the broader market. And that's where he's taking his product. And I think that's what he's going to have to start thinking about, is how do you talk about this new service as something that really delivers quite a margin of improvement over all the other search sites that are out there.
There was one thing I noticed about the pitch that wasn't related to technology, but he actually looks a lot like Chris Isaak. If you go look at Chris Isaak on the internet, which I think is going to be a huge strategic advantage for you guys, that he actually has that kind of Chris Isaak sort of, kind of all-American yet thoughtful kind of look to him. I think that's going to help him raise money. It's going to help him in sales.
Spend a little time at the gym, though.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to tighten up. Maybe I can get a good full shot. But I think I think that's a good comparable.
Maybe you could be the front man.
It's an excellent comparable.
Right. It's a consumer product.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So on this though, I think the trick becomes that Digger. You got to figure out what problem you're going to solve first off, because semantics and so on. And this is PowerSet, although they had a $100 million exit, raised not that far off $100 million. So I mean, it's like a really expensive. Yeah. It's a really expensive area to get into. You're talking about not just taking sort of algorithmic indexes, but actually understanding what people are saying, intent and meaning, and so on, right. in the English language and potentially other languages. So it is it's a very tricky thing to solve,
right.
And I think that you can't do that hugely. Like I wouldn't approach this problem top down like a Google does. I would approach this problem bottoms up and say, I'm going to do this as I think they are doing to some degree for these sites. I'm going to create auto-generated taxonomies, I'm going to create auto-generated indexes, I'm going to create new ways of looking at content, and then gradually I'm going to aggregate sites up and give cross-site searching based through my view of those sites. But I think you've got to go bottoms up, not tops down.
Yeah, and I think they did that with their B2B play, right? And I think they were very successful there.
Right.
It's whether they can do that, and I think, you know, some of this is marketing, right? Obviously there's the technology and what it can deliver, and then it's how you talk about it. And if they're promising the world, you're going to get better search because we understand what you mean, and that's not what they have to deliver that,
right.
and that's going to be challenging. I think your advice is really good for them.
I think that was the problem with PowerSet. Huge anticipation in that product. But you know, and another problem with PowerSet was they were trying to index the entire web. I think did Google just hit past a trillion, their trillion URL. One thing that TextDigger is doing that I think, and I don't understand the technology that well, is they're not trying to index the entire web. What they are trying to do is use what's already out there and just tweak a bit and improve upon what's out there. So that's probably
I think the problem becomes where you fall in the search category. You know, many years ago I worked at an aviation information services company that delivered maintenance information for airplanes. And there was a lot of searching going on. But the reality was we couldn't return results that were some of the answers like you can on Google. We had to return the exact answers in a very specific way. So the requirement of that search product was incredibly stringent on what had to be accomplished. On Google, you know, close. You know, the consumer expectation is I'm going to get something close to what I'm looking for. If you're finding that middle ground, you've got to understand what the use case is of how specific you need to be and how accurate you need to be between the, you know, an airplane's going to crash if I get it wrong, or the I can just sort of take with the best I can get. You know, what is it? If it's a medical application, is it a financial application? What are the applications of that sort of, you know, tighter searching and making sure you're delivering on whatever the consumer needs at the degree of accuracy they need inside of that context?
Right. And how do you wrap that in an experience that really is meaningful, right?
Right.
I mean, human behavior is really hard to change. Market behavior is hard to change. And for the vast majority of people who go to Google for every search, who are using it in their browser bars, an add-in, that's a good enough experience, right? I know that I type in a bunch of words and I'll get something pretty close in the first page or two. You need to move people off of that experience if you're taking them to another search engine, and I think that is the margin there, the improvement has to be significant in order to make that change that behavior.
I do like the enabler aspect of this. I think if they can go to sites, I think in-site search is still a shockingly bad product across almost every site I go to. So if they can create, auto-generate ways of navigating sites, and there's been companies, you know, Lumia and Clarity and other companies that basically used behavior, not the actual content, but the behavior of users and so on to determine what was relevant to what and how the sort of site should be navigated in discovery.
Sure.
And this is another content-based approach to that. So I think if they can nail that, then that's great. But the trick becomes then what are the various business models that they're going to, you know, are they going to charge subscription? Are they going to charge, you know, advertising? Most of those companies became advertising companies because they basically said, you know, we can contextually match.
Google is an advertising company too.
Oh, absolutely.
That's
so
revenue.
How do you monetize that?
So combining behavioral and semantic can deliver.
Right, which they can do in their B2B product because you've got a context for that. I am shopping for a product on CNET, therefore these other things are likely to be contextually relevant. I'm putting in any search I can think of. That's a lot harder problem to solve. So, you know, I question, certainly they have good reason to do it, but I question why they're actually even entering a direct consumer market where there's, I think, so much great work to be done in the marketplace where they already are.
And certainly if they are going to go do a B2C product, they should probably put their entire energy into building that as opposed to trying to be a B2B play as well as a B2C play.
Yeah, it's not something you can do as a hobby on the side, that's for sure.
Call the Cosmics guys, have them do the B2C play, and focus on doing the B2B thing and build a kick-butt indexing and accessing system for content. There is a huge problem. There's no one's really solved it. It's a hard problem to solve. If they can solve it, they'll be really successful.
Right. And as long as they can get Chris Isaac to come in and be their spokesperson.
And they got Chris Isaac as the front man. They don't even need to have any like paid sponsorships or anything. They're in business.
All right.
Well, you get Chris Isaac, you get a lot of capital because it's just really trendy, and then you just, you know.
Well, they need a lot of capital. I think they've raised $1.5 million. Probably not or maybe I'm wrong there, I'm not quite sure, but it doesn't look like they've raised a boatload of money, which they probably
But
need
they had some good
for
investors. CBS
their-
Interactive invested, it looked like, and they had some other good VCs. So they have 4.3 million in, it looks
Okay,
like, and they got
4.3.
Intel.
Oh,
and
no, they have over 6 million. Okay.
yeah, so they've got
Okay.
you know, they've got the stuff to do it. I think the trick
Okay.
now is can they find applications where there's going to
Right.
be a lot of value where they're going to make revenue.
Right, and it's just really hard to move from one type of market customer to another. So making that leap is going to be a big risk for them.
Okay, but at least focus on the vertical, do the B2B, postpone the B2C endeavor for a while.
Well, I think get really solid at what you're doing well
Yeah.
now, and I think he did say that in his pitch. I think that was actually one of the effective parts of his pitch, was talking about where they're successful today. Really solidify that before heading into this new territory.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think that trying to become a B2C search site is really, really tough. But I do think there's great opportunities in enabling other publishers.
Okay. Well, Chris and Ezra, thank you so much for your insight. I'm sure Tim and all the backers and investors and the team over at Digger really appreciate our feedback. But of course, we're not search experts. We're certainly not semantic search experts. I should speak for myself. I'm not. So we do welcome your feedback as well, and criticism. So anyway, you have been watching Vator Box. I'm Bambi Francisco. We'll see you next time on Vator TV.